Hi everybody, welcome to my matrix, it's Matricity. How are you? Let me put up these windows to be sure we have less noise. It's a fine evening down here in the Battery. The breeze is wonderful and it's just getting to be dusk, and it makes me think about the perfect thing to talk about, ghosts. So welcome to Spooky Fridays. The thing I've missed the most about COVID is the fact that I can't go out and eat at restaurants that I really love. And that brings to mind one of Charleston's most famous restaurants, because it is the most haunted restaurant in the entire city. Do you know where it is? Do you know the name of it? I'll tell you. It's Poogan's Porch, and it's on Queen Street. Poogan's Porch is Charleston's most haunted restaurants, and there are several entities that live there. And I'll tell you about the history of that restaurant. But if you ever have a chance to go there, please go, because the food is excellent. Well, the house itself was built in 1888, and it was a private residence for, gosh, years upon years, until about let me get the dates right now, 1976. The owner sold it, and then the new owners made it into a restaurant. But the thing is, when the owners sold the house, they left their dog. And Poogan, as far as the name of the restaurant, Poogan was in fact their dog. They abandoned Poogan. When they moved, they left Poogan with the house all alone, no food. His humans left him, and he was just deserted. He was left on the porch. So Poogan was an adult dog. He wasn't a young dog at that time. He was an adult dog. And he was a Wheaton Terrier, and I think I have a picture, so I'll try to put that in here as well. But pretty dog, but he was abandoned. So the people that bought the house, who wanted to make it to a restaurant, found Poogan there, abandoned, and they decided, well, he comes with the house, so let's keep him. So they kept Poogan, and they gave him a forever home until he died several years later. He died in 1979, so he didn't live much longer after his prior owners abandoned him. But in the time he had left, he was the star of that restaurant. He was the greeter. He stayed on the porch because that was his thing to do. I guess he did that with his prior owners too. But he was always at the front of the house, and so he greeted customers as they came in to the restaurant. And they named it after him, Poogan's Porch. So he was always on the porch as the greeter. So when Poogan died, seeing how the porch was his favorite place, they actually buried him in the front yard at the steps, at the foot of the front steps. So if you go there, and I've been there many times, you will see Poogan's grave marker. There is a little doggy grave marker with his name engraved, showing exactly where his little body is. But he is there at the restaurant, buried in his favorite place, right there at the foot of the stairs, the front porch of his porch, Poogan's Porch. Now, the hauntings. Poogan haunts the restaurant. So he is the ghost dog. And apparently, many people have had encounters with him. You may not always see him, but you feel his presence. If you're sitting at the table in the restaurant, sometimes people will say they will feel something brush against their legs, but in reality, they think they've dropped their napkin. It's like they have their napkin on the lap, and they say, oh, I must have dropped my napkin because I felt something near my ankle. So they look down, and of course, they haven't dropped their ankle. But who was that? That was Poogan, sniffing around their feet for crumbs. So Poogan does haunt the restaurant. He is there. Many people have encountered him as far as feeling him around their ankles when people are eating, so he's there. But the main ghost in that house really dates back to one of its prior owners. Now, as I said earlier, the house was built in 1888, and during the early 1900s, it was owned by a woman named Zoe St. Armand. Now, during the 1900s, you think about the time period then, she lived there with her sister, Elizabeth. And they were kind of like spinsters. They were both school teachers. They were very prim and proper. Zoe apparently only wore black clothing, very, prudish clothing, Puritan clothing. So she was very stern looking and very foreboding all the time. But she lived there with her sister Elizabeth, and so they were fine just there. Now Elizabeth, though, she died in 1945. And Zoe was left alone in the house. She became very lonely and depressed, and so much so that her mental health began to suffer, and she became kind of confused. And I'm sure, I haven't worked out the ages, but I'm sure that they're also probably very elderly by this time as well. And I think I have a picture of the two of them, and I'll try to put that up also, so you can see what they look like. And you'll see her dressed in her black dress, all very prim and grim looking. Well, once Elizabeth died, Zoe, as I said, her mental health began to decline, so much so that she would begin to wander the streets of Charleston looking for her sister Elizabeth. But of course, Elizabeth had died. So after doing this for quite some time, the neighbors decided they needed to do something to help her. So they basically took her to the St. Francis Hospital, where I do believe she was kind of like committed because of her mental state. And so that's where she lived out the rest of her days, in St. Francis Hospital, in a ward, because she was not herself anymore. So when she died, they say that her spirit went right back to the house looking for her sister Elizabeth. So she's an unhappy, unsettled spirit that is there. And people know that she does actually haunt the restaurant. There have been many people who've actually seen her, had encounters with her. And with her spirit entity, it isn't like the ghost-like entity. And usually she is up on the second floor near the restroom. That's where she haunts. And basically what she does is, there's a bathroom on the second floor, a women's bathroom for the public. And so if you go in there, you might be in there, you might see somebody come in there right after you with a black dress on. You might think nothing of it. Oh, just a woman in a black dress. But when you turn around, you might see her in the mirror if you're looking in the mirror. When you turn around, nobody's there. And you realize, wow, that's strange. That was Zoe. So she kind of like haunts the bathroom. You have encounters with her. Her form looks solid. So that's why people think she's a real person. Her form looks solid when she walks into that bathroom. The other thing, too, is directly across the street from Poogan's porch, there is a restaurant, the Mills House. And people who have rooms on that side of the building that faces Poogan's porch sometimes have seen Zoe upstairs in the second floor windows, and during the time when the restaurant is closed, and people have actually called 911 thinking there's a woman trapped inside the restaurant and it's not open. So they've actually called the police, and of course it's only the ghost of Zoe there. So she's there all the time. She never leaves. I don't know if there's any way to release her spirit so that she can actually go off and be free with her sister. I don't know, but I do know that Zoe as well as Poogan haunt that restaurant. So that is why it is Charleston's most haunted restaurants. Now, I don't think I've ever encountered anything there. The only thing I encountered, not Poogan, but possibly something weird with Zoe. This was a time when I had taken my daughter there when she was much younger, and we were sitting downstairs, and so I had been upstairs to the restroom and came back downstairs, and when I just happened to glance through the window, I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I thought, what's that? And I didn't really see a distinct form, but I just saw something like smoky and hazy kind of moving up, moving up toward the ceiling. I thought, ooh, that's weird. So I think that was Zoe. So when you go to Poogan's porch, not only will you get good food, but you'll also have the chance to have some ghostly encounters with its ghost dog Poogan, who was a real dog, and also the prior owner Zoe, who haunts the second floor. So that's it for Spooky Fridays today. See you later, alligator. Bye!